This series will provide an opportunity for participants to gain insights, ask questions, and seek advice on careers in life sciences from industry experts and key influencers through interactive presentations and panel discussions. As we're all aware, COVID-19 has disrupted several industry sectors and has had a huge impact on the life sciences sector. And there is no doubt that our sector is playing a key role in this pandemic. Those at the epicenter of developing new therapeutics, diagnostics, and other essential services for COVID-19 are seeing growth, and others, for instance, clinical trials, higher education, startups, and SMEs, have had a mixed response. Throughout the pandemic, business continuity, workforce supply and demand, and supply chain management of essential services has been a priority. What's next for the life sciences industry, both globally and in Australia, is unclear, but it is likely that there will be long-lasting impact on how the industry will reinvent itself, operate, and specifically how people will work. A new normal is emerging, and adapting to embrace new opportunities will be key to the future. The industry is growing, and so the sector will require more talented professionals within the pharma and biotech industry, clinical research, as well as other supporting sectors. And that brings me back to this webinar series, as it will provide an opportunity to create awareness of the life sciences sector in Queensland, demonstrate the types of jobs that are available, empower new graduates by bridging the gap in skills and the knowledge required to ensure future employability, and prepare them to meet the demands of the evolving industry trends. Now, it is my pleasure to hand over to our moderator today, Emma Chung. Emma is a scientific recruit consultant at Evolve Scientific Recruitment. She has over 10 years of experience in startup and commercial life science organisations and over 4 years in scientific recruitment. Emma brings a breadth of knowledge in medical device manufacturing and regulations such as ISO 9001, ISO 13485, TGA and FDA, and she is passionate about matching great scientists with successful scientific companies. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. So my name is Emma Chung, and I'll be your moderator for today. I am a scientific recruitment consultant with Evolve Scientific, and just to tell you a bit about us, we are a technical and scientific recruitment agency. We work very heavily in the life science sector on a national level, and we're very excited to be supporting this LSQ webinar series. There are some great topics, so keep an eye out for what's coming up. If you are currently looking for work and you'd like to register with us, there's a big submit resume button on our website. You can also follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn. So today we have some really interesting presentations. I'll let you know that there is a Q&A section if you have a look at the bottom of your screen. If you'd like to enter any questions you have along the way, we will get to those at the end. If you're interested in a question posed by someone else, you're welcome to vote or like it to push it up the list. So our first speakers are from EY, and they will be presenting about global life science, global trends in life sciences and the Australian market. I'd like to introduce you to Cameron Bird, who is a partner in strategies and transactions with expertise in investment and policy evaluation in the health and human services sector. Presenting with Cameron is Dr. Jay Liu. Jay is a manager in strategy and transactions, and she has a plethora of experience in a range of projects, including expertise in planning strategy and policy development for emergency responsiveness and pandemic preparedness, which is obviously a bit of a hot topic right now. So I'll hand over to you, Cameron and Jay.
Thank you, Emma, and thank you everyone for being here. So just for the next 20 to 30 minutes, Jay and I we've got a collection of slides that we've put together from some of the work and observations that EY have come across both globally but also nationally. And we'll begin by just talking about some of our observations, and then we'll move to some of the Australian market observations as well. So we might kick off with that first slide. Great. So I think one thing we wanted to share is I think we've got a comment that people aren't able to see the slides. Hopefully you can see the EY slides now. So one thing we've definitely seen at the moment is life sciences companies who have always looked to respond to patient services through the development of products that deliver health outcomes are certainly going further now into investing in new technologies and enablers that improve and enable greater engagement of the ultimate consumer. And we've just got a couple of infographics here which demonstrate some of those initiatives. One in diabetes, which is really around new solutions in smart technologies that enables better management of diabetes outcomes. And another one which more related to medicines in the mental health space, where technologies around medicines enable sensors to indicate when someone has actually used medicines and enabled real-time monitoring of use of medicines which are time dependent. And what this says is life science companies now, certainly over the last 3 years, are now investing in smart technologies and other technologies to ensure they're providing the latest services and products that patients need. Next slide, please. So when we think about an industry, we often think about stakeholders within that industry and what they're actually looking for and what they really want. And so in this case, where we think about things from the perspective of the patient, the provider of services, the payer, the policymaker or government, and then biopharma and the medtech sector. And so what are we seeing? We're seeing that patients are very much interested in getting the right, affordable treatment and ensure that their health outcomes are met, first and foremost, and really participating in their own care versus just receiving and trusting in the service or product that they're receiving. Providers are continually wanting to provide a cost-effective treatment that ensures that health improvement is achieved. As a payer of those services, if you are paying for them versus the government, you want to ensure it's cost-effective and you're getting the maximum impact. Policymakers and government are making lots of decisions about what are the right health outcomes to invest in and ensuring they're cost effective. And then if you're a biopharma company or a medtech company, you want to get a return on your investment and certainly on the investments you're making, which are in case sometimes substantial. So if you compare your patient to your biopharma and medtech, sometimes those needs or objectives are not always aligned, and we can sometimes see new discoveries not necessarily getting to consumers at the point at which they're actually made. So the market isn't always operating efficiently, but we are seeing it moving more rapidly. Next slide, please. So what are the 4 key facts that we see are impacting the industry? And these have existed for a while, including pre-COVID. Well, first one being socioeconomic forces. So, populations continue to grow. They certainly continue to age, and the prevalence of chronic disease is increasing both through social factors, but also our ability to identify prevalence as well. And so as a result, the health and life sciences sector is becoming a larger and larger proportion of the overall size of an economy. And this is a good news if you're students. These are important sectors for governments to continue to support. The second is technology forces. There's just been an explosion of new technologies entering into this sector. And we've mentioned there, we've got some abbreviations. So artificial intelligence, what we call internet of everything and blockchain. Also new technologies around computer power and storage. These things are transforming the way that medicine is being delivered, whether it's personalized or customized. And that's the trend we're seeing a lot. And I'm sure you're seeing it in the way some of your treatments are being provided on a personal level. Customer centricity, more and more as consumers, we are becoming more and more empowered to drive markets. And what does that mean? Is that providers and producers of new solutions need to be far more tailored to the needs of us. We're no longer just the recipients of a product. We are now dictating the way the products are being developed and actually shaping the way they're being delivered. And then the fourth one is around capital efficiency. All we mean by that is many of the life sciences companies would invest really heavily in large elements, large costs of investment, whether it was factories, distribution centres and labs and things like that, and seek a return on those investments, and people, of course, and seek a return over the investments over a long period of time. Those periods are shortening. Whatever a life cycle company is investing today, the time in which they might invest again might be 3 to 5 years, because it's very technology based. So as a company, you have to be a lot more efficient with the money you're investing, and we're seeing a lot more big changes happening sooner within industries. That can be fearful, but it's also very exciting. It presents a lot of opportunity for people as well. Next slide, please. So Jay and I, and I'll throw over to Jay in a moment, we'll just talk about what we're seeing is what we call the fourth industrial revolution. And so this is a fusion of digital, biological and physical worlds, which is supporting some real rapid changes in the life sciences sector and real breakthroughs in new technologies to enable innovation in the sector. So if I look on the right-hand side, we're talking about robotics and automation. Robotic surgery is something that you've probably heard of before, obviously, and is certainly revolutionising the way in which surgery is delivered, wait times and so forth. Blockchain technologies to improve the integrity of supply chains. Supply chain integrity is a key issue right now, certainly with the impact of COVID, whether it's the life sciences sector or other related sectors. And there's new technologies to really improve the integrity of those processes. 3D printing, mentioned bioprinting, both in research and development, but also the active consumer markets. This is something which will continue to progress and become very prevalent. Artificial intelligence, we're all benefiting from the impact of artificial intelligence during the COVID and the impact of isolation. I'm based in Melbourne, still under stage 4. And artificial intelligence is helping me in my consumer life, in the drug discovery process, in diagnosis and in patient monitoring. This is going to become an essential component to any infrastructure we normally have. And then device miniaturization, I gave an example before around digital pills. So I might throw to Jay to talk about some of these other factors and continue the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Cameron. So if we look at the left-hand side on the slide, we can see that automatic delivery also has a great impact into our healthcare sector, if not life science sector. So for example, in America, Amazon has been partnering with pharmacies and started using drones to actually deliver prescription drugs to patients. And in certain part of the world, police have been using the drones to actually police, if not monitoring the citizen movements in response to COVID-19 and to contain the outbreak. If we look at augmented reality, this actually has been applicable and applied into disease diagnostic, and understanding that there are a range of research program is undergoing to how we actually better perform imaging, if not diagnostic informations to help the clinicians to make any diagnostics in patients. Another booming area is the genetic and omic technologies. So back in about 15 years ago, when first whole human genome sequence was discovered, and it took actually a total of 10 years, and the cost was in the units of $1 billion. But nowadays, we can just get out one whole human genome sequence to be done in the space of 4 hours and in a cost of, you know, in a dollar of hundreds. So things actually, the improvement of technology actually enables a lot of accelerated discovery and in research. Now, given the improvement of technology and innovation, it come across with huge amount of data being also produced, and in that sense, Internet of Things and the connectivity at home, at workplace, in between hospitals and healthcare sectors really becomes immensely important. And with the cheaper computing power and storage, which also enables the data being, you know, to be looked at in one go in a big data analytic environment. If we look at a bit of historical estimation, in year 2000, it was estimated that we will be having producing human data for about 12 exabytes. But within the space of 8 years, the data actually exceeds the expectation of 100 times. And this actually grows exponentially within space of 7 years. And the data actually increased dramatically to 10,000 exabytes. And this growth is actually alongside with the SIGA growth. This actually represents a really qualitative shift in the availability and potential of data. Medicine is no longer in clinical science from what we can see, but it will be actually supported by data. It is moving to a data science supported by clinicians. Traditionally, doctors and clinicians and medicines are the ones that, you know, just making are the keys to making diagnosis and treatment. But there is an increase more and more reliance on using data to support any clinical decision making. Now, across the whole health ecosystem, the goal is actually to use the data to deliver intervention more proactively and in more personalized ways, resulting in more improved outcomes and the ability to prevent, but not just treating disease. The shift to digitalization and datafication is actually reshaping how the health sciences and wellness industry is fundamental ways of delivering. There are 5 major breakthroughs that we can see, which also due to the rise of digitalization and datafication. So as a patient, consumers increasingly more embrace the opportunity to take a bit of control, to be more proactive in their own healthcare. The wearable devices, sensors, and new digital interface will then become actually available and enables personal healthcare management. Now, this technology will allow care to take place in the background without inconvenience to the patient consumer. This part of broader trend towards customer centricity. In addition to patient, payers and providers are also actually demanding the care to be convenient, seamless, and affordable. In this environment, connected devices will actually enhance this shift of consumer centricity, and devices are already enable continuous management in chronic disease like diabetes or schizophrenia, as Ken was mentioning right at the beginning of the talk. Now, since data will be the critical factor in enhancing healthcare, it will become the highest value element of a company portfolio. It's the new sort of commodity in the health science space, existing even the IP value of the devices that are generating. This critical data cannot be allowed by any single stakeholder, since in a connected world, the multidisciplinary of data source is so large. Instead, value will be captured by stakeholders that share the data, which also able to discover the insights and to drive the health outcomes. As a result, proprietary, protective attitude to data will become a thing of the past. This flow of information between the stakeholders will become the health ecosystem faster and make the operations more fluid and blur more boundary. The health ecosystem would then become a really dynamic network, updating all the time and tracks and trends the health and disease anytime, anywhere. What we have today, the shift will fundamentally alter the way care is imagined or delivered. Technology will increasingly allow care to be delivered at home rather than in hospital. With telehealth and smart devices connected to the Internet of Things, massively expanding the potential for remote monitoring, diagnosis, and even treatment anytime, anywhere. Now, this is really more pronounced and accelerated in recent months due to COVID. Telehealth has become more and more common, and for any of the GP appointment, if preferable, will be conducted by telehealth. Rather than institutions owning and profiting from the patient data, consumers will actually now increasingly become empowered to take ownership of their own data, assessing the data via secure platforms and using and sharing it as needed to optimize their own health outcomes, much as they can use their own bank accounts. More than that, instead of a one-size-fits-all model of care, where treatments are tested at population level and targeted at a mass market, intervention will become more increasingly tailored to the individual patient, taking into the account not just biological variation between patients, but also behavior and other data that can influence the outcome. Physicians will take on more of the guiding collective roles, assisting patients with the management of their own data and health journeys, rather than acting as authority figures, holding decision-making power over individual patients. More importantly, the data analytics will be in the future work on a much greater scale, using big data sets that can use via AI algorithm and other cutting-edge analytic tools, deeper and more usable insights that are present with data source segregated at discrete buckets. The future value of life sciences will actually be defined how you can actually unlock the power of data to fuel innovations. Unlocking the power of data means generating insights by more effectively connecting, combining, and sharing separate data streams at a greater scale than ever before. This principle of a sharing economic of data is quite alien to many health sciences and wellness companies, which are used to be defending and protecting their own IP. The majority of life sciences companies' legal investment goes to defending of IP, preventing proprietary knowledge from being shared. We have to come up with different models, or we are not going to be able to harness innovation. We need to co-create with others to share value. For the company sharing a much more open ecosystem, where emerging digital backbone begins to enable platform-based interoperability is a major change in the world view. The ultimate goal of a data must not simply to be measured, quantified, but actually is fully to utilize the data to drive actions to improve health outcomes, whether the outcomes are better clinical outcome, more efficient care delivery, or lower healthcare costs. Now, companies that can make shift to sharing and using data to improve outcomes will be well placed to win in a new health ecosystem. So as mentioned earlier, the life sciences business model has evolved from its historical product-centric approach. In the past, where the drugs was actually ended with falling R&D productivity, tightening regulation, and the patent cliff. Now, in the second Life Sciences 2.0, a different business model actually came to the fore, with value driven by the diversified product portfolio that put greater emphasis on specialty drugs. These products are typical premium priced, derived from biotechnology companies, and prescribed and administered by specialists only. Now, because of the seriality of the disease, they have historically had lower premium price, lower reimbursement hurdle. But this is actually starting to shift as payers actually become under pressure. Now, with the increasing organization and pressure from empowered patient, the new model of 3.0 has actually yet to be fully realized, in part because of the infrastructure challenge that to make real-time storage, analyze, and use of outcomes data difficult. Now, with a future shift is becoming 4.0, this continues to move towards outcome-based value, the redistribution of power, and the progress from passive patient to super consumer, but will actually accelerate this change through the emergence of rapidly deployed data-driven platform that make it easy to share, analyze, and use the variety of health data. One critical change is the growing diversity of customers that company must serve. Instead of just serving the healthcare practitioner traditionally, now a range of customers make demands to the industry, like what Cameron was mentioning right at the beginning. The customer becomes more demand and more required to have personalized treatment. To bring together all the data being captured and processed by the new nerve system, a digital backbone will emerge across multiple different industry and with stakeholders. At present, the health industry has no universal digital standards, and the variety of volume of data and form of data being generated is huge. For the moment, there is no single infrastructure that fills all the available health data. Without this infrastructure, individual stakeholders must be able to make modest improvement of care in specific disease area, but more holistically and consumer-oriented change will be impossible. And that's where you can see a lot of non-traditional player has come into the picture. For example, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft. As yet, it's too soon to say who will take the lead in developing the digital backbone of the industry needs, either by the big technology company players that I was mentioning just then, or small or more specialized digital players. This is yet to be determined. But however, it's important to note two things. One is this competition is yet to play out, and it's exciting to be in such a competition and rapidly changing environment. Second part is that life sciences companies don't necessarily have to own the backbone to create value, but given the close linkage between data and digital infrastructure, life sciences company must understand how they can participate in platforms of risk being shut out of important emerging network. So I will pass back to Cameron.
Okay, thank you, Jay. So just wrapping up our presentation and before we throw back to Emma, just a couple of points in summary around what we're seeing life sciences move into practice. They not only have to be a life sciences company, but they also have to be a data company, very much needing to orientate themselves towards the consumer experience. Identifying value is around innovation to achieve outcomes as opposed to innovation to achieve just products. That requires using data. It requires personalization of data at the consumer level. And to maximize the value of that data, they're looking to be investing in collaborative platforms and also differentiating themselves by leveraging a broader ecosystem. And then finally, the ability to do analytics and have freedom to do analytics and experimentation is really key, in that the rate of change and for new discovery is probably happening at a faster pace than what we're used to. Next slide, thanks, Jay. And so just turning to the local market, or what we would call Australia or Oceania, I think it's worth just mentioning a couple of minor points there. First, around commercialisation. What do we mean by commercialisation? We mean around translating a discovery or a new product into the broader market and broader economy to eventually be traded. You know, Australia's got an amazing reputation around research, discovery and clinical trials. And what we are seeing is government wanting to move down the commercialisation path, probably more than it has in the past. Informatics, the use of data and data analytics and informatics to drive innovation is something we're seeing more commonplace, and investments are occurring in that place. Being part of a diverse ecosystem where people, institutions ultimately unlock their value and their capital and their ideas through collaboration. That's why we're seeing, while I think there's been wonderful examples of precincts occurring, the physical precincts and also technological connections that can be achieved through an ecosystem will certainly drive industries to be successful in various countries over. And that's something in Australia that is definitely a priority. And clinical integration, you know, translating outcomes into clinical practice and ensuring that clinical trials and the outcomes of those trials can be translated locally is another focus that we're observing from government. So these are things that you know, Australia isn't the recipient of these trends. We're participating, and which certainly presents good opportunities for yourself. So that's the end of our presentation. I might throw back to Emma now to mediate the rest of the session.
Thanks, Cameron. And thank you to yourself and Jay. That was really informative and really interesting. I've written down several questions myself. So again, encouraging everyone that if you do have any questions, just pose it there in the Q&A section. If you're having troubles there, feel free to put it in the chat area. And we'll get to it at the end there. So our next speaker is actually somebody that has influenced my own career in the life sciences sector by placing me in jobs. So I'd like to introduce you to Trevor Neville, who is the principal of Transition Group. Trevor has been involved in the life science, healthcare, biotech sector for over 30 years, and he now specialises in recruiting personnel within these sectors and has done for some time. So he's got some really great expertise and insights that he'll share with you now. So I'll hand over to you, Trevor.
Thanks, Emma, and thanks for that. Yeah, I've been in it a long time. So that's, we'll just start with, I just want to make sure you've got that screen. Has everyone got that screen?
I think we're not seeing it yet.
Okay. You just guide me through it if I've got it, Emma.
No worries, I'll let you know once it's up. There we go.
Okay, thank you for that.
Perfect.
So the talk is on propelling your career into life sciences, career trends and opportunities. And there are a few interesting things that we need to look at. And I'm trying to also take into account what the Cameron and Jay said from EY as well. So I'm going to cover 4 different areas. One is opportunities in the area, some of the trending positions, implications of COVID as to how it stands currently. Now, whilst EY talk was more futuristic, and Emma can maybe come in on this as well, in recruiting, it's more about the roles that are here now, but keep an eye on the future as well. So we've seen some changes, and then we'll cover skills and traits required by business employers. And I'll ask you the question, you know, what are your strengths? So it's a busy slide, but if you have a look superficially across the top about, and this is a classic product cycle from basic research on the left-hand side right through to marketing. And down the bottom, if we go down the bottom to entrepreneur, in essence, the basic research, applied research and development is very much where a lot of the digitalization and datification that Ernst & Young talked about, that's happening there. As far as products out the end, we haven't got that. So we're still, if you like, going back to Ernst & Young's talk, we're very much in that data-driven platform. We're in 1.0 to 2.0. We are certainly not up at 3 to 4. So bear in mind, that's where the EY presented the big picture, but we're down in 1.0 or 2.0. And going back to my slide on the discovery, development, commercialisation, for most people looking for jobs, most of the jobs are on the right-hand side. That is, these areas, verification, prototype development. So we're talking quality control, preclinical, clinical trials work, manufacturing of some type, and then the marketing. There's not so much of roles available down here in this end, discovery, except for IP and the original entrepreneur. So please understand, most of the jobs are on this side. So just to give you a bit of a macro, so that hopefully will help you. Just to give you an idea of the opportunities in industry, in Australia, the main thing about this is have a look at the bottom left-hand corner. Pharmaceutical, $7.5 billion in revenue over that period of time, but biotech is already, it's going to be $8.7 billion and rising. So biotech is where it's happening. Medical devices and diagnostics is still pretty big, but over time, biotech will get bigger, and pharma or pharma manufacturing in Australia, I will suggest, is going to get less. So we don't have much pharmaceutical manufacturing, that is of drugs, in Australia, and it's more about startups and developing to that stage. Again, that's in line with Ernst Y's talk, that we're doing the commercialisation stage, not so much the manufacturing here in Australia. So just to give you an idea, that's the main thing, biotech growing. The next slide, courtesy of Life Sciences Queensland, but the main one is they have mentioned here expertise in e-health and telemedicine. Now, Jay mentioned that already in her talk with EY, that e-health, and we've seen that definitely with COVID, how telehealth is taking over. So they're the new areas, but we have about now 2019, there's 11,000 people employed in this sector. It's now 12,000 on that. I will point out there are 2 biopharma contract manufacturers here in Queensland, which is terrific. And given there's only virtually 3 in Australia, that's a pretty good effort. And we do have state-of-the-art transitional research facilities, etc. So we've done all the research. So if you like, it's the 3 Bs. We've done the bricks, we built the places, we got the bodies, as in we've had Ian Fraser, Mark Kendall, etc. Now it's time for the bouquets. Okay, we're developing stuff, now we need to see results. So coming into the industry now is a really good time, say compared to 10 years ago, is what I'm saying. Give you an idea of roles generally, don't freak out about this slide, but just to give you an idea, if you got a career, let's just say a business development person, say in a pharmaceutical company. So where could I look for a role elsewhere? Well, there could be a startup biotech company. Maybe I could get a role there. Or is there some other pharmaceutical companies producing this product or this area that I'm interested in? Maybe I could work for them. Or is it moving over to another science section like diagnostics? So there's 2 different ways there that I could look as an alternative to a career. Or the other side of it, in the company I am, who supplies us? Is it research institutes, government departments, equipment or consumable suppliers, or even recruiting? So, they are suppliers to these industries. Is there an opportunity there? And then if we go to the right-hand side, okay, if I'm in this pharma company, who could potentially buy us? Is it another pharma? Is it another biotech? Will it go into other market sectors? So you need to have a look at those. So just go back, have a think about where do I want to go? and then perhaps use this model, which is Porter's 5 marketing forces, and have a look at the alternatives around it. It's just a macro at this stage, but there are opportunities. So let me give you some idea of trending positions in industry. Again, mentioned earlier, Life Sciences Queensland mentioned 2 major manufacturing biotech contract manufacturers here in Brisbane. There's not so much other pharmaceutical manufacturing. There is some diagnostics happening. So in essence, it means, therefore, we're looking for scientists in manufacturing, whether it's process of the products, quality assurance, regulatory or project management of the product or service through. The other big area that's touched on with EY is clinical trials. Australia has an incredible name in that. So there is a lot of opportunities for people to get into clinical trials area, or you become an analyst. I'm sure Cameron started off at EY like that, as did Jay. I noticed they both came from the science area. So that was also another area to be looked at. Or you could work for a consultant or become a contractor. Risky at this stage, but it is an opportunity. They are the normal Queensland/Australian roles that are around. Remember, going back to that virtual slide 1 where we got 4 or 5 steps in producing a product, we are at the right-hand end. So they're the jobs that are required. So just some implications on COVID. And these are just my observations. And again, Emma from Evolve might want to chip in at this or add it in the Q&A section as well. I've certainly noticed an increase in senior experienced expats. The expats, that is ex-Australians wanting to return home after 5 or 10 years or longer overseas. COVID reasons, family reasons, or they now see the opportunity in Australia. So I've noticed that with it, they obviously bring a lot of experience and expertise. And if we have a company that can embrace that, we should take these people on board. It's with a bit of a grin, I say graduates are applying for every role. They're trying to get their first break. And that was one of the questions asked is, how do I get my first break? Got to keep trying. And you got to try it with targeted covering letters and CVs. And that's another story for another day. I do wonder if we will see a change in this cycle now, given the substantial revenue drop in universities with their overseas students and the requirements coming forwards, that will we have an interesting scenario in 4 or 5 years' time where we can't get hold of enough graduates? I'd suggest that could be the case. Right now, though, unfortunately, we're flooded with people, graduates applying for everything. And unfortunately, they're applying for every job, and a lot of times they don't have the skills required. There are also other applicants from other areas, and I'm in biotech only. So I'm finding people from food area, nutraceuticals are starting to apply for jobs because they're a little bit fearful of where they're up to given COVID. I mentioned as well, production areas of biotech are going flat out. Emma can comment on that. A couple of companies I work for are going flat out, as I know Emma's are as well.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, so that's good news. Smaller biotechs, they're just starting to find their feet again, steady as it goes, but they are now starting to look to hire. And I'm just finishing off a role for one of those now. So that's my take on it. If you want further, you can ask in the Q&A session, but that's how I see that view. As far as the skills required, what do you need to get a job? They're listed there. I won't go through them, but if you don't have a lot of those people skills on the left-hand side, you are in trouble. And in this day and age, if you're going from graduate to a commercial, I stress I do not do academia roles. I only do industry roles. So these are the skills that I'm looking for on behalf of my clients. And you've got to have some commercial now. So if you don't know the company you're applying for the job, anything about them, or you haven't done their research, forget it. You're not getting anywhere. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. as I said, that's a separate discussion some other time. We need focused, well-planned, motivated, collaborative, show initiative. Preferably as you get up the tree, you need to have overseas experience. I'd recommend that for most people. Most of you young ones are probably thinking of going overseas. By all means, if you can, when you can, please do so, because it is important. Have industry awareness. I do a lot of contract manufacturing around TGA. You need to know all about it. You need to understand good manufacturing practice. And, you know, I cannot understand, if you apply for a job, you must do your homework on the company that you're applying for, and you must make sure your application marries up with what they're looking for. So I pose the question to you, and you can at least think about it in this short duration. What are your strengths? How do I compare to this list? I will finish there because of the time. We're going to have a question and answer a little bit in a while, Emma, so I'll flick over to you, Emma.
Thanks, Trevor, and thanks for your insights. Your expertise is invaluable. I know, as I said, personally, and Trevor's well known throughout our sector in life sciences, Queensland and throughout Australia. So that was, I think, I agree with a lot of what you said there, and things are changing. So there were some great insights. What we'll do now is we have 12 minutes to head into Q&A. So we have 2 questions at the moment on the board. I've got several here as well that were pre-submitted. So I'll kick off with the questions that were posed in the Q&A first. We have one here for Ushi, for Dr. J. Liu. And the question is, how do you think university degrees focused on healthcare sciences should change their curriculum approach to make students ready for such a diverse life sciences revolution 4.0?
Thanks for this question, and this is a brilliant question. Maybe I would just use my personal experience as one of the starting point. Myself was a science bachelor students as well as a PhD students, and myself also lecture in certain degrees of healthcare sciences discipline back in the days. One thing that I probably wanted to emphasize is a lot of skills that you probably sounds a little bit scary or sounds like, oh, I never actually touched them when I was studying, but in reality is when you actually come to workforce, we are actually providing on-the-job coaching and on-the-job support, and you are not going to be let alone to run on from day one. That's one aspect. The second aspect that I probably want to highlight also is that it's really important for you to actually further develop, if not to actually emphasize and look into the importance of soft skill development throughout your degree, especially for STEM students like science, technology, mathematics, and engineering. You're actually in a really great position where your degrees are designed to actually to train you up with your logical thinking, analytical thinking, and the ability to actually draw insights from data in a really quick manner is something that we as a corporate member, we extremely value, and same as our client and stakeholder that we're dealing from a day-to-day basis. So my recommendation is, I don't think so in my personal experience and opinion that there's any major change that need to be happen in the curriculum, but definitely don't think that you are not equipped when you actually get from the data when you actually get your certificates. So yeah.
Great, thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
I'll follow that up with, how do you get a job at EY? Cameron, did you, and Jay, yeah.
I'll probably go like Cameron to answer this question, given that he's my boss.
No, that's a good question. We employ a lot of people. It's interesting, a firm like EY, 10 or 15 years ago, we were known as one of the big 4 accounting firms, and now we're the big 4 professional services firms, because I think over half the people we employ don't have an accounting degree anymore. We employ people from industry backgrounds with industry skills, or have done PhDs like Jay, because we recognise diverse teams and really high-performing teams. So in terms of the fundamentals of the process to the basic administration of seeking out employment of EY, get on the website and look for career opportunities and the opportunities and the timing of which positions are available. But there's also the notion that I think Trevor had on his slide, networking. And I think Jay could add to this because Jay is more recently out of university. Is don't hold back in seeking out all sorts of opportunities to engage with various people, whether it's EY or whether it's people in industry. Don't wait for the advertisement for a role to then respond to a position. There's always conferences, there's speaking events, there's many different ways in which you can engage with potential employers in the future, and understanding them, engaging in discussions, building up your knowledge of and contacts within industry are a factor. I'm not saying who you know is what matters, but getting comfortable with the the organisations you're targeting and taking real interest in those is a key part. When I sit down and we go through interviews and we have interview processes for these things, we want to hear about your strengths, what your interests are, what your passions are. And we want you to come. I certainly agree with Trevor. Taking an interest in the place you are looking to be employed in is something to do, but also feeling very strong about your own strengths and your own value that you can bring to an organisation and showing that interest. So, Jay, I know it's a long answer, but maybe Jay, you might want to add to that as well.
I completely agree with you with what Cameron was suggesting as well. And myself, how do I actually ended up in consulting in EY is part of networking. To be honest with you, when I was doing my bachelor degree, I don't even know what EY is or the other Big Four consulting is, but it's just for networking, talking to people, talking to friends, and that's how I found out and develop a bit of interest and find out, find out more and hearing more and learn more and try out. Actually, more importantly is yes, I got a background in science, biomed, PhD, but I actually found it that I want to try something new and not to limit myself. And that's how I end up where I am today, working with Cameron.
Excellent. Thanks for the responses there. Very curious just to understand how it might be to get into EY. It is a high profile organisation. Trevor, we have a highly voted question, which I think was pointed towards your presentation, and that is how important is having a PhD in these roles? I will make the assumption that that's the commercial industry-based roles. So I'll kick it over to you, and I have no doubt that we'll probably align on your response there. Mute as well. Trevor, you're still on mute.
Yep, sorry. Yeah, thanks, Emma. How important is a PhD in commercialisation land, in business development and above? Yes. And EY seems to be heading, as are the others, to people with PhD as a general. If you're going into a manufacturing role, I don't think it's as important. And I have this conversation many a time, and unfortunately, no, it's not required. Emma, would you like to add to it?
Yeah, look, we have very few industry or commercial scientific roles where the PhD is an essential criteria. A lot of them will ask for the bachelor level, and the rest is focused a lot around the soft skills and the development within the organisation, the culture and the team. So it's not nearly as common, if at all, that we see the PhD being a requirement. Okay, thank you for that. We are running close to time, so I'll go with the voted questions. And I think the whole panel could probably contribute here. As a Bachelor of Science student entering my final year of study, I was wondering if there are any effective ways of developing contacts or getting prior experience to graduation or experience prior to graduation. Did you want to kick off, Trevor?
Yeah, experience prior to graduation, very difficult, except for what Cameron said. In our pre-COVID world, it was quite easy to network at various functions and that. But we've all seen those functions have dropped off dramatically. I can only suggest you get on these live webinars and ask questions so that we know who you are. So it's about, it's not what you know, it's not who you know, it's who knows you.
Yeah, I agree. Cameron, did you have some input?
Yeah, don't limit your options. You know, there's a range of organisations. I mean, Trevor presented some good slides talking about just the size of the industry in Queensland. You know, Australia has a large market in health and life sciences. It is the largest economic contributor to our economy. So even in the COVID arrangement, I think that the things that stop us most are ourselves and hesitating, reaching out or waiting for an event, looking for an opportunity. Reaching out to organisations you're interested in, asking questions about how can I find out more about you and about job opportunities. I think Jay mentioned to me when we were talking about this webinar yesterday, I thought it was a great comment. She was saying if you reach out to an organisation and you don't get the job, that doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to get the next job. It means that at that point in time, that organisation have just made a decision that your skills and what you're providing doesn't quite fit what they're looking for. It doesn't mean you are not employable. There are many options. So our advice to you is don't limit your options by only targeting 2 or 3 scenarios. Keep them broad.
Excellent. And I don't know if you noticed there, but don't limit your options or was mentioned quite a number of times. And that is a trait that we see as a huge barrier for graduates getting into new roles.
Yeah.
Say yes, try new things, be open. Okay, lovely. Now we probably have time for one more question. So let's have a look at the votes here. Okay, well, an interesting one is, what is the best way to keep an eye out for new biotech startups or companies in your area?
Network.
Yeah, Trevor, and how do you network?
Well, there are a couple of Life Sciences Queensland, as an example, is a great organisation to be aware of if you're not a member, but at least they do a terrific job in keeping the industry together. And keep an eye, I get a weekly email from them, as I'm sure most people do. So you can see, even then, they've got in there. I think they are under the Catalyst program, Nagaraj has got, here are the new companies around the place. Have you looked on their websites? It's available every week on an email. Hey, you know, please deliver it to me. You know, that's the sort of thing you need to do. Cameron and Jay's alluded to it. LinkedIn, what's the company I need to target? Who's on LinkedIn? Do a soft response to it. There's lots of ways to look at it more than the average person is doing. I think only 10% of people are truly looking for a job. The rest of you are waiting for CCADs. And sorry, you're with the masses. And it's tough.
Okay,
Emma?
thank you. And Jay or Cameron, did you want to add a final comment there?
I probably would agree with what Trevor was saying, that there are several other sort of like association, if not organization around. But one personal tips I will probably provide is actually go and search those organizations. Instead of killing yourself, what you do also is to actually register for their weekly, if not periodic newsletter. And through there, you can see that there are different sort of like events, networking events, as well as what are the, you know, emerging great news or surprising good news over there. So that's also how you actually reach out and bridging with people. Another part, LinkedIn is a good media, but also at the same time, have a think about also what would you like to try out. Personally, in my own student life, I've tried out, you know, take up, summer and winter internship, either by cold calling, if not, applying through biotech, through academic. And I have tried out different places, and that's how I figured out what's my personal interest, and hence a bit of, later down in the track, a bit of networking, as well as, reaching out to a bit of unusual space in some certain comments.
And Cameron, did you want to add any final remarks at all? We'll wrap up after this.
Oh, no, I think Jay answered and Trevor answered that
Perfectly.
question really well.
Okay, lovely. Well, that's a wrap. So we've reached the end of the first webinar, which is a part of the full series with LSQ. I'd really like to thank our speakers, Cameron Bird, Dr. Jay Liu from EY, and Trevor Neville from the Transition Group. It was really insightful. I've taken a copy of some of the extra questions that came through, so if there is scope for them to be addressed, that may be something that LSQ can put through later on. So we know that your time is very valuable to our speakers. We really appreciate it. And thanks to all of the attendees. It's really great to see you interacting at this level. And one of the messages that you will continue to hear is that this networking is really important. And especially through COVID, where we can't see one another in person, these initiatives are a really great way to stay connected and informed. So keep an eye out for the rest of the LSQ webinar series. They will be each month. So keep an eye out. Next month is the 16th of September, with a focus on advanced manufacturing, which is a huge topic in Queensland at the moment, with a lot going on in areas like local sourcing and supply. So thank you very much for attending. Like I said, I will copy these questions and see what we can do. Keep your eyes on the LSQ pages, and we hope to see you next time. Thank you.